The second part of our building our bus class is a little work about our constructor and some instance variables. It says a bus has a fare, and it's the cost of riding the bus, and it also has a rider count, which is the number of people on the bus. So those are things that a bus has. So I can already expect that those are going to be some instance variables that I'm going to have to create. It tells us to write a constructor that takes the fare as an argument and passes the value to a private instance variable. Your constructor should also initialize a private instance variable that holds the rider count to 0. And then update your tester class so that it uses the constructor that you wrote. So really we're making a constructor here. I'm going to go back over here to my empty bus class, and it says make a constructor, public bus, and the constructor takes one parameter, it's the fare, and I'm going to store that in a double variable. And so now my constructor takes a double called fare. Maybe I'll change that to like amount, because I really want to use the word fare, private double fare. I want to use the word fare as my instance variable. And I already know from the specification that I'm going to need another instance variable for the rider count. So, and I used an int for that because that is how we count, in this case, riders of the bus. Now we're going to do two things in this constructor. First, we're going to set the fare of this object to amount. And we're also going to set the rider count equal to 0. So let's just go back to the specification and take a look. Actually, I'll just slide this over so we can see them both. It says a bus has a fare and a rider count. That informs our instance variables. And we're going to write a constructor that takes the fare as an argument. So somebody using our bus class could put the fare right here, and we're going to do that in a minute. And then it passes the value to a private instance variable. That's what this line of code does. It just takes whatever the amount that was passed and stores it in the fare variable. Our constructor should also initialize a private instance variable to hold the rider count, and initializes it to 0. So we have a private instance variable called rider count. Here we initialize it equal to 0. And one important thing to notice is that every brand new bus has 0 riders. We don't need to pass an argument and have the people using our code say how many riders there are. There's just 0. And so that is our constructor. Now, we're told to update the tester class so that it uses this constructor. And you notice when I go into my tester class here, I'm using the default constructor here. And instead of doing that, I'm just going to put a number here like 2.5. That's a double, and that's the fare that is being passed to this bus. And update your tester so that it uses the constructor you wrote. So I think I've done everything that I was asked to do in step 2. Let me just compile everything here and run it just to make sure it behaves as I expect. And there it is. This is the output from the most recent test that I ran, and it just created another bus object and printed out the memory location. So there's no evidence that, well, we actually used this constructor, and close that. And so we've fulfilled the expectation of this second step now. And in the next video, we'll move on to the third step.